Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So let's talk about stem cells. But before we do that, I'm just going to tell you a short story, which is what led me to pick this topic in the first place. So I was coming home from a business trip, and as usual, I'm usually working on the plane. Usually, I'm really careful about having my papers sort of concealed so that the word stem cells don't really show, because my personal experience of how people responded to my research work. So on that plane, I think I was just maybe a little bit less careful at that time. So one of the words stem cells were showing. So I was working away, and the gentleman beside me kind of looked over and said, "Oh, stem cells, huh? Guess you must be killing babies in the lab." Yes. So I was pretty shocked. Well, at first I thought he was joking. But then when I turned to him, his expression on his face clearly showed that he was not joking. And his wife that was sitting beside him just gave me the dirtiest look. So I put my paper aside, and we had about 4 hours of our flight back to Vancouver. And we talked about what stem cells were, where the field is going, stem cell biology, what are the myths. And after our 4 hours back to Vancouver, I realized that it wasn't that he was afraid of this topic, or that he had some kind of preconceived conception about it, but it's because he was misinformed. And it's mostly through mass media and Hollywood. And yes, he did quote an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. So let's see. So what are stem cells? Okay, we're going to do a fun short activity right now. I want you to turn to the person beside you. So preferably a person that you came with, so you won't get in too much trouble. So go on, turn to the person beside you. So what I need you to do is look into that person's eyes. So romantic, right? So you look into that person's eyes, and do you see the colored part of that eye? Mainly the iris and the pupil, the colored part. Now, in the surrounding area of that colored part are a very special group of stem cells called limbal epithelial stem cells. Those are eye stem cells. You can look back this way now to me. So this group of stem cells are really special. They help regenerate your cornea every 9 months or so. So without those important group of stem cells, you wouldn't be able to see. Now, stem cells are not only in your beautiful eyes, but they're also present in your bone marrow. Those stem cells are responsible for making every single cell in your blood. And there are also stem cells in your muscle to help you generate muscle when there's trauma or injury. There's also stem cells in your gut. Believe it or not, that the lining of your gut in your intestine, it gets renewed every so often, and stem cells help you do that. There's also stem cells in your brain to generate new neurons to form those signals. So that's what stem cells are. And those are not the only ones. So the first one we looked at is the ones that we just talked about are all adult stem cells. The second type that we're going to talk about are embryonic stem cells. Now, these are the group that are a little bit more controversial. But these cells, they're amazing because they can make every single cell in your body. And where do they come from? So they come from a structure called the blastocyst, which is what the picture that you see is at the bottom. And a blastocyst comes from after 5 days after the sperm meets the egg. 5 days. The next set of stem cells are called induced pluripotent stem cells. Now, these are super special cells. I love these cells. They come actually from your skin, like literally from the forearm, from your forearm, their skin. And what scientists have done is that genetically reprogram these cells to act exactly like embryonic stem cells. So not only does this group addresses all the ethical issues that surround embryonic stem cells, but these cells can also make all the cells in your body. So with stem cells, like I said, it is a controversial area, and there are many myths that follow with stem cells. The first myth, and I've heard quite a few, The first myth is about cloning, human cloning, organ farming, that type of thing. And with cloning, it's not a foreign subject because it happens in nature. Genetically identical twins, believe it or not, are clones of each other. How that happens is that when the sperm meets the egg, that egg splits into two cells, and each cell becomes an individual. Those are genetically identical twins. The second myth is that some people think that, yes, we're killing babies in the lab, like that gentleman on the plane. And that's absolutely not true. The fact is that embryonic stem cells can only come from that 5-day post-fertilization. And if you want to know how small that blastocyst is, it's if you look down on your TEDx program or in the newspaper, you find a lowercase I. That blastocyst is smaller than the I on your dot. Smaller than a dot on that I. That's how small it is. And the third myth is about how stem cells it's a cure-all, it's a snake oil remedy, make you 20 years younger and things. And that's absolutely not true as well. The fact is that this misconception is the one that upsets me the most because there are medical groups out there who twist and manipulate research work that's been done by well-known stem cell scientists out there to purposely use it to prey on the desperation and hopes of patients who just want to get better. Now, the fact is that regenerative medicine using stem cells, there are some routine ones, but most of them are experimental. So let's talk about some of the more routine stem cell therapy. Have everyone heard of bone marrow transplant? Yes, right. So bone marrow transplant, believe it or not, is a stem cell therapy. So what happens is that when someone gets leukemia, the stem cells in their bone marrow becomes cancerous. And so one of the only ways to make that patient better is to do a bone marrow transplant. This is where you get a set of healthy donor bone marrow cells. You transplant it into that person with these healthy stem cells, and the person would get better. Now, believe it or not, the first successful bone marrow transplant happened in 1968. 1968, that far back. Now, let's fast forward about 45 years to today and see what stem cells have done for us today. Remember those embryonic stem cells that we just talked about? What we have done is that, so I'm going to show you a video and what you'll see is clumps of cells that come from embryonic stem cells that have been transformed into heart cells. And what you'll see is these clumps of cells actually beat and pulse to the rhythm of a human heart. Okay, so let's play the video. Wasn't that amazing? There's cells beating in a dish, right? So, these cells have great potential. We have used this for, to find out the proper dose for heart drugs, to find out the toxicity or the effects of these heart drugs. We have even used this, to start repairing hearts that have, undergone heart attacks. So stem cells don't only do that. Now I'm going to show you another slide. In this slide, what you'll see are pictures of patients' eyes that have been chemically burned. So it's not a pretty picture, but it gets the message across. Okay? So what you see is these patients can't see. They might be able to see some movement, but they can't see. Patient number 26, the third one down, he's a gentleman that hasn't been able to see through that eye for 30 years because he got that burn 30 years ago. He just couldn't see. And so what this group did, they published their study and their trials in the New England Journal of Medicine. And what they did was that from the healthy eye, now remember, this is just one eye that's affected. From the healthy eye, they took those special eye stem cells, those limbal epithelial stem cells that you just kind of saw in your friend's eye, transplanted those groups of cells into the scarred eye. And what do they see? They can see The gentleman who is patient number 26 after 30 years, who was not able to see his friends, himself properly through that one eye, now is able to see. Isn't that amazing what stem cells can do? So now I actually want you to imagine certain things. Imagine like the day that you walk into your doctor's office today, and you tell your doctor, I'm ailing from a certain disease, or that's why we go to the doctor. And imagine the day that the doctor can take a sample of your skin cell, turn that into any cell that they need, into a specific tissue that you might be ailing from, find the exact drug dose specifically for you at that point in time that helps you. Imagine that day. That day is, that day, it can be reality. And imagine the day that no one has to die from waiting on a bone marrow transplant wait list because they could not find a matching donor. Imagine that no one has to die because they were waiting too long. We take these skin cells, turn them into healthy bone marrow stem cells, transplant it into these patients who, because it's from their own skin cell, won't have a rejection, and they won't die from they won't die from just waiting. And lastly, imagine the people who, those patients that had their cornea burned. But this time, imagine that both of their corneas are burnt, not just one. This means that both groups of your limbal epithelial stem cells, those important eye stem cells that generate your cornea, they're all gone, meaning you cannot see at all. Can't even see out of one eye, you cannot see at all. So what happens? Believe it or not, we can take your skin cell, turn them into an induced pluripotent stem cell, and then turn that into corneal tissue, transplant it into your eye, and you can see. You can see the person beside you. You can see your family. You can see your friends. And that is what stem cells can do. And that is not so far-fetched, because there's a group in Japan who's actually, I just read the news just this morning, they actually got the approval to start to do clinical therapy using these skin cells to treat eye diseases such as macular degenerative disease. To do that. And it's the patient's own skin cells, so that means there's no rejection. Now I want you to imagine a world that have, what stem cells can do, the potential of stem cells, what it can benefit you, in that audience, you over there, your friends, your family, what it can do for every single person in this world. Just imagine. Thank you.